So Deepti, even if I am measuring leadership using 2 items, what are the 4 constructs that you are mentioning? Is Deepti there? Okay, so let us move on.
So I'm talking about the constructs which are mentioned in the whiteboard, the 4 constructs.
Yes. Which
ANT,
4?
EMP, TO, LEF, the ones
Yes.
which are just lying before leadership.
Yes. So,
So I'm saying that if we measure leadership by say 3 items, then will the arrows be from ANT to leadership, showing that there's a causative relationship, because I'm already using 3 items to measure leadership. In this, we are not taking
no,
any.
so please understand that EMP is a dimension of leadership.
Okay.
TO is a dimension of leadership. So if I have my leadership construct,
Yes, sir.
this is my lead. I have 3 sub-dimensions. One is what we call as TO, another is LEX, and the third is EMP.
Okay,
Right?
sir.
So you will always draw it like this because these sub-dimensions are caused by the overall leadership. The
So, say
overall
if I'm
leadership.
using an item to measure the overall leadership also, saying
No,
that the
you don't. No, you don't. You don't. You will have items to measure. You have 3 items to measure EMP. So you have EMP 1,
okay,
1, 2, 3, and then you have TO 1, 2, 4. You have 4 items to measure this, and you have 3 items to measure LEX 1, 2, 3. Okay?
okay,
If
sir.
you don't, then you don't have any other item that will be different for leadership because you see, leadership is made up of these 3.
Okay, sir. Okay,
So
sir.
there is no other item that you will write to measure leadership separately.
Okay, sir.
These
Thank
are 10 items that together make up the leadership construct.
Okay, sir.
Is
Thank
that
you.
okay? So you
Yes.
will always have it like this. EMP is a reflection of, EMP has a reflection of leadership, TO has a reflection of lead, LEX has a reflection of lead.
So,
And
for
then these,
example, instead of leadership, I'm using some other construct, which which is not. Then can I use items to measure that construct instead of leadership?
yeah, so you can have items to, you will have to have items to measure those constructs, right?
Okay, sir. Okay,
You
sir.
will, so if you have an antecedent, you will have items to measure those antecedents. So this antecedent will have its own items to to measure that.
Yes.
PJ has its own items to measure PJ. Creativity has its own 6 items to measure creativity, right?
Okay, sir.
And then based on these 5 items, you will estimate PJ latent. These 6 items, you will estimate creativity latent. And these 10 items, you will estimate leadership latent, right?
Okay, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah, yes. Okay. So remember, we mentioned measurement error is computed as variance of the item multiplied by, or this is variance of measure. When we were doing reliability, I was telling you this is variance of x multiplied by not square root actually. Let me erase this because it is variance, so it will not be. It will be 1 minus reliability that you have. So this is how measurement error is estimated by the SEM software. Once you know reliability, you know the variance of X observed item, you can estimate what is the error associated with the item and then estimate it accordingly, right? It is not necessary. You can have even simple just one construct instead of 2 constructs. But using SEM, you can make as complex models as possible. Dharmesh, we are not doing simple averaging. We are not doing simple averaging here. We are telling the tool to estimate the latent factor. You would have done simple averaging in SPSS. In SPSS, you would have said leadership is equal to nothing but EMP plus TO plus LEX whole divided by 3. Okay. This is not something that we are doing here. This is not something that we are doing here. This is something that you would have done when you would be doing regressions using SPSS. But here, what we are doing, we are actually going to give this as an input to the tool. We are going to define this factor structure. We are going to give this as a factor structure to the tool, and we'll ask the tool to estimate the latent factor leadership. We will give this factor structure to the tool and say estimate PJ latent, and we'll give this factor structure and give it ask it to do estimate latent creativity, and then estimate relationships between the three constructs. Okay, so you will not do simple averaging in SEM. Averaging would be done in SPSS. What do you, Purvi, what do you mean by the relationship of EMP? Okay, so I think what you are saying is you want to test directly EMP to PJ, EMP to creativity. Yes, that you can do. You can not, you may not have, you can decide not to have this second order latent factor and directly regress PJ, PJ on EMP. You can directly regress PJ on TO. You can directly regress. So you can decide whether you want to keep these three as your independent variables or have a second order latent factor, right? Lizrel and Amos, they are just different softwares to run your structural equation models. Okay, there is no other difference. So it is completely, it is just a software to do. The underlying ideas and the phenomena remains the same. So what is SEM? SEM is a statistical method that takes confirmatory hypothesis testing approach to the analysis, right? So remember, when we will do our analysis, we are going to specify this as a model. It is unlike exploratory analysis where we ask the tool to estimate and tell us which factors. Here we are going to give this factor structure to the tool. Okay, and so therefore it is a confirmatory or hypothesis testing approach. And what it does is it sort of models causal processes as a series of structural regressions or regression equations that we are going to model graphically, right? So it shows causal processes as a series of regression equations, and we are going to test statistically a simultaneous analysis of this complete system at one go, right? So this is something that we are going to do, right? So we will, what is the advantage of SEM? As I mentioned, it provides explicit estimates of error variance. So this is the only methodology in social sciences where you can explicitly model measurement errors, okay, which is not possible in any other kind of regressions that you do. It takes a confirmatory approach rather than, I have already explained this. It can incorporate both observed as well as latent. This is unobserved, which is latent variables. And as I mentioned, there are no widely and easily applied methods for modeling multivariate relationships. multi-sample comparisons, and so on. Right? There are lots of names: causal modeling, causal analysis, simultaneous equation analysis, analysis of covariance structures, covariance-based SEM, path analysis. These are all different and special names for structural equation modeling. Now, how does it work? Okay, this is, I'm just trying to explain the basics of how SEM works. So what we are going to do is we are going to specify a model. Okay, what is our model? We are going to tell the tool that, well, I have a latent construct and I have observed items. Okay, so this is what I am going to. So this is my simple model, right? 3 items, and so one of the inputs to the tool is going to be this model that we will develop. Then what we will do is we will give the data, the raw data, okay, which has 3 items. So in our case, because there are 3 observed items, so we will give the tool a sample covariance matrix. Remember when we were doing reliability, we had talked about covariance matrices. So we will give the input. You don't, even if you just give the raw data, the tool will automatically compute a covariance matrix. This is called as the, because this is based on the sample, this is called as sample based covariance matrix. Okay. Now the tool will estimate based on its computations, the input that you have given. The tool will estimate, just like in regressions we used to have y hat, which was y predicted. In this case you will get I1 predicted, I2 predicted based on the model, right? So the tool is going to predict the 3 observed values. It will compute the latent factor values, okay, and will generate another covariance matrix, okay, another covariance matrix which will be based on I1, I1 hat, I2 hat, the predicted values, I2 hat and I3 hat. And this will be called as model based covariance matrix, something that has been estimated based on the model. And the tool will check, the tool will keep estimating the model till you get, let's call this as sample S, let's call this as okay, let me, yeah, so let's call this as S, sample based, and let's call this as model based covariance matrix. So the tool will keep on running this computation or estimation till you will get the difference between S and M 0. That means you are able to compute or come as close as possible. I1, I2, I3 are estimated such that they come as close as possible to the actual sample based data I1, I2, I3. So the two covariance matrices, the two covariance matrix, one based on sample, another based on model, they overlap. Once you say that the two metrics overlap, okay, this becomes your best solution, right? So once it is able to exactly match the model based covariance matrix, something that has been computed based on the model you have specified, and the input sample covariance matrix which you have specified. Once they become exactly the same, you will get a perfect fit. And what is the index that is used to test this difference? It is called as the chi-square variable, chi-square. So the hypothesis that we will use in when we will do confirmatory analysis, this is the uh, uh, actually we don't do not equal to 0 because chi-square is a positive distribution. So we say chi-square is equal to 0, or the alternate hypothesis is H1 chi-square is greater than 0. If it is chi-square is 0, that means the two matrices exactly match, right? They are able to, we are able to get to the, we are able to replicate the sample covariance matrix, which means our model is very good, is very good. The CFA model, the measurement model that we have specified, is a very good fitting model, and therefore we should actually believe in this model. So remember, what are we going to look at is we are going to look at this index chi-square is equal to 0, chi-square not equal to 0, right? So we will test these, and there are different I will just explain this once again when we do the do an example. We have latent variable, which are the theoretical construct, observed, which are the measures of the latent. Exogenous variables in the model are variables that are independent. They are not explained by the model, and you have endogenous, which are explained by the model, right? So then we have measurement error terms. I think we have talked about it already, and structural error terms or unexplained variance in the latent endogenous variables. And then covariance is a measure of how much two variables change together. Okay, let me show you this again. Let me uh, draw this example once again, just to explain uh, what are we implying. Let me just, okay. So we have mentioned, we have, let's just simply assume that we have a three-dimensional model. That we have this is EMP, this is LEX, and this is task orientation. And then there are covariance terms. Okay, and you have observed item. This is item 1. You have 2, 3, item 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and item 10. And you have error 1, error 2, error 3, 5, error 6, error 7, error 8, error 9, and error, right? So this is what we have. This is the CFA model, right? Remember we said you will have sample-based covariance matrix, which will be supplied to a model that we will develop, and then based on the model we will get what we call as a model-based covariance matrix, And we want, what do we want to do? We want to achieve chi-square, which is nothing but model-based covariance matrix difference sample-based covariance matrix, which is equal to 0, right? This is what we got it. And what do we want to do? So this is the index in structural equation modeling. The gold standard chi-square should be 0, which would mean that the matrix computed based on the model, this model that we have specified, will exactly match the input that we have given. If you can replicate the you can get to a matrix that exactly matches your input. What does it mean? That the model is actually a very good representation of the reality. In reality, you have collected data from the sample, then you are making a representation of how these items are related, right? Now, and based on that, the tool is computing a model-based covariance matrix. If they superimpose model-based and sample-based, if they superimpose, then it means that this model is, and this is how we write in papers, is very good representation of the reality, right? This is a very good model that we should follow. This is a good model, and therefore I believe that this is how the variables are linked to each other, right? So this is what we are trying to do. And now, what are the parameters? When we talk about SEM, we call it as number of parameters that the tool has to compute. Parameters. What are the parameters? It is the number of loadings. Number of loadings in this model. If we look at the CFA model, then what are the number of loading? What are the number of parameters that the tool will have to compute? It is called as number of loadings, number of measurement errors. So we call it measurement errors plus, then so loadings are done, this is done, then number of covariance terms, then there are latent factors, so we say it has to estimate number of latent factor variances. Okay, and yes, these are the things that it has to do in a CFA model. When we will do structural model, then we will have structural errors also. Now, another thing that we have to remember is when we will do this, specify our confirmatory models, we will have to tie any one of the, so you can tie any one, but one of the paths, any one of these three, right? These three loadings has to be tied to one. So we tie, let's say we tie the first item, here also we tie the first item, and here also we tie the first item. So one of the loadings has to be tied to one. And why is it done? Why do we have to do this? This is called as why do we have to tie this to one? We have to tie this to one because if you have an item I1 is measured on a scale of 1 to 5. Okay, let's say it is measured on a scale of 1 to 5. This also is measured on 1 to 5 and 3 also. So all these items are measured on 1 to 5. But when the tool is estimating this latent factor, how does it know that the range of this latent factor should be 1 to 5, or it should be 1 to 10, or it should be 1 to 20, right? So what should be the range within which it should scale this latent factor? Because see, based on these observed variables, the tool is trying to estimate the true factor, the true latent factor. So it has to estimate what should be the range, the minimum and the maximum. And therefore, when you tie this to one, tying means you will constrain this path. You will constrain this loading to one. You will have to now find out, okay, you will have to now check, okay, what would be the range of EMP. So you will, the moment you constrain this path to 1, the tool will automatically understand that the range for the latent factor should also be 1. If, for example, item number 4 was measured on a scale of 1 to 7, and if you constrain this path to 1, the tool will now understand that the range for this latent factor will be 1 to 7. If 7 was on a scale of 1 to 20, the moment you constrain this loading to 1, the tool will understand that the range for the latent factor will also be 1 to 20. So as a matter of principle in CFA, when we are doing SEM, if you don't give this as an input to the tool will give you an error and it will not be able to estimate the confirmatory factor model. So you will have to remember, you will have to always constrain anyone. You can constrain I1, you can constrain I2, you can constrain I3. That is perfectly your choice. There is no hard and fast rule. But you will have to constrain one. Okay, that is there for identification or estimating the model, right? So that is just a condition. Remember this, that we have to do as a matter of principle. So what are the number of parameters now? Let us compute for this. It can be completely random. As I mentioned, you can choose any one of these, but you will have to give a number 1 to constrain. You cannot give it any random. You cannot give here 5, right? But if, for example, item 3 is measured on a scale of 1 to 10, and you decide to constrain this item as 1, then the latent factor will be 10. It is not necessary that you constrain the lowest or the highest. It is perfectly your choice which you want to do. The tool will not mind. And then you can also try out different, you can try out, run it with this, tie it to 1, or if you are not getting good results, but usually results don't change too much with depending on which item you tie. So what would be the number of parameters that the tool has to compute? The tool has to compute loading. So let us count the loadings. This is already tied to 1, so the tool does not have to compute this loading. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6, 7. 3 paths are already tied to 1. So the number of loadings are 7. How many measurement errors are there? There are 10 measurement errors. How many covariance terms are there? 1, 2, and 3. And how many latent factors are there? 1, 2, and 3. So it has to estimate the variances of these latent factors. So it becomes 3. Right? So what are the total number of factors? It becomes 17, 20, 23. Now, for this, remember chi-square is a distribution which is a positive distribution. This is your chi-square distribution, and it is dependent on degree of freedom, right? So you have to decide, you will have to identify, you have to, the tool will check for this hypothesis based on degrees of freedom. So chi-square will always, so this is the actual test in a CFA model. Chi-square for its given degree of freedom is 0, and chi-square for given degrees of freedom is not equal to 0. So what is the formula for computing degrees of freedom? Okay, degrees of freedom, let me actually put it below. So the formula for degrees of freedom here is given by k plus 1 by 2 minus hash theta. And let me tell you what is k. K is number of items, which in our case is 10, correct? We have 10 items, I1 to I10, so k is equal to 10. What is k? K plus 1 by 2. I will tell you what is degree of freedom also. What is k plus 1 by 2? It is number of unique terms in covariance matrix. Let us take a quick example here. Let us take an example. If I have 3 items, okay, this is my covariance matrix, and I have 3 items, I1, I2, and I3. This is sigma 1 square, which is variance of item 1. This is sigma 2 square, variance of item 3. And then you have sigma 1, 2, you have sigma 1, 3, and you have sigma 2, 3. So what are the, how many unique terms are there in this covariance matrix? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So number of unique terms is 6, which is given by k plus 1 by 2, which is equal to 3 multiplied by 4 divided by 2, which is 6. Okay, so the formula for degrees of freedom, because remember we said that the input to the tool is sample based covariance matrix. So how many unique terms are there in this covariance matrix? It is k plus 1 divided by 2. Now when the tool has to estimate this model, how many parameters it has to compute? Theta, hash theta. So what is the degree of freedom, and how do you define degree of freedom? What is degree of freedom? Degree of freedom is, if I am given a model, okay, now let's say in this case the degree of freedom will be 10 times 11 divided by 2 minus 23, which is equal to 55, right? 55 minus 23, which is equal to 22. So degree of freedom for me is 22. What is degree of freedom? Degree of freedom means in how many ways you can change the estimation of, sorry, it is 32, my mistake. The difference is 32. Very poor mathematics. So that is 32, right? So what is degree of freedom? Degree of freedom would mean that I can change the way I am going to estimate these parameters in 32 ways. That means the way I am estimating this model, I have degree of freedom. That means I can change my estimation of the model, my estimation, the way I have to estimate this model to reach the same chi-square. I can take 32 different paths to reach the same chi-square. What is degree of freedom? If you have, let's say, I say that volume of a cube is 100. I say length, what is volume of the cube? Length into breadth into height. Okay. How many, what is the degree of freedom for volume of cube? Degree of freedom is not 3, it is 2. That means I can independently change L, I can independently change B, but the moment to reach the same 100, right? Let's say initially I gave 10 into 10, so let's keep this as 1000, 10 into 10 into 10, right? I get my LPH. Now I say length is 20, breadth is also, let's say 20, but the moment I give you this as an input, L can change independently, B can change independently, but the moment I have given you L and B, H gets determined automatically. H will be nothing but 10 divided by 4. Okay. So what does it mean? It means that when to get the same chi-square, how many different ways I can estimate my model? What are the different possibilities, options that I can try, okay, to get to the same chi-square? That gives me an estimate of my degree of freedom. So I would, for this degree of freedom, whatever chi-square I have, I will look for the p-value, right? Remember p-values. So we said we will look for, and remember, do I want to reject my h naught here? Do I want to reject h naught or fail to reject? I actually want to, if this is my test, then I want to fail to reject. We never accept h naught. We always say I want to fail to reject, because what then it would imply that my model based matrix and sample based matrix, they exactly superimpose. So what will I do? I want to look for p-value that is greater than 0.05. If my alpha or significance level is 5%, then I want a p-value that is greater than 0.05, greater than alpha, so that I fail to reject. If my p-value goes below 0.05, if it goes below 0.05, what will it mean? I will actually be rejecting h naught, which would mean that actually my chi-square is not 0. My chi-square is different from 0, which would mean that my model, actually model-based covariance matrix and sample-based covariance matrix are not superimposing, which would imply that my model is not a good fit with the data. That means it is not representing, not, it is not representing the reality, right? Which is something that I don't want to do, right? And therefore we will compute. The tool looks at how many parameters it has to compute. It looks at how many input values it has, and out of this it can change 32, but it cannot change 23, and it looks therefore, sorry, it can change 32, it cannot change 23, and it gets its degree of freedom. It will compute chi-square, and for this degree of freedom it will look for the probability distribution, check for p-value, and tell us whether the model that we have specified fits with the data properly or not, right? So that is the whole thing that we will do. So then this will become our first CFA model. Then what we will do, we will do our second CFA model, which will be PJ. We will repeat the same steps. We will estimate, we will specify a model for PJ. We will estimate a model for PJ. We have 5 items in our data set, right? These arrows represent measurement errors associated with the items. This is PJ1 and PJ5. You have 2, 3, and 4 here. So we will estimate again. We'll specify this CFA model. We'll check for its let's call this as E11, E12, E13, E14, and E15. These are the errors. Then we'll specify our third model, which is our creativity. And creativity has 6 items: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It has 6 items. So we'll have 6 observed items, and we have the associated error terms. Right? And this becomes E16, E17, E18, E19, E20, E21. And then this is our item C, let's call this as C1, and this becomes C6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and this is 1. Okay. So we will estimate a measurement model for leadership. We will do a CFA model for leadership. We will do a measurement model, a CFA model for PJ, and we will do a measurement model separately for creativity. We will show that all these scales, all these measures, these were already taken from already published papers. This also, creativity scale, also from already published paper. And these 10 items is something that we have developed based on our. So we have already done EFA, we have done reliability. Now we will show that the CFA also holds good. And then we will come and test the nomological validity, discriminant validity. Will show that leadership is different from these 2 constructs, and then we will test the paths between these dimensions. And so, right, so we'll do that analysis, right? So this is in brief what is all that we do when we do confirmatory analysis. Okay, and this is all the terms that I have just told you. Okay, characteristics of the model that is unknown to us. This is nothing but the parameters. This is what are the things that are unknown to us: factor loadings, structural regression coefficients, variances, and covariances. So when we will have the paths. When you will have the paths, then your regression paths will also be unknown, right? So that will also be, and the moment you regress, remember when we regress, we also have a error term that gets associated. So we call this as the structural error. So this will have structural error, even Pj, because Pj will get determined by, which is structural error is nothing but the unexplained creativity. Remember when we write our regression equation, what do we write? We write y is equal to beta naught plus beta 1 x plus error of y. What is EY? This is unexplained y, which is also called as the residual, right? And this is what is getting represented in the structural error. So we have two kinds of errors in SEM. We have two kinds of errors in SEM. One, we have been talking about it for a long time now, measurement errors. These are associated with the items. These are associated with the items, and then you have structural errors. These are associated with regressions and latent factors. Right? When we will do regressions, we will have these. We will have these. So remember, there will be two errors, E and S. Okay, and each potential parameter must be specified fixedly. And this, let's look at this diagram. So what is a fixed? If you tie a path, I mentioned that this is a path that we will tie. So this is called as a fixed parameter. Similarly, when we denote this, we assume that this coefficient of the path, this is also all tied to these path coefficients. They are all tied to 1, right? That means this error completely attaches to item 2. This error completely attaches to item 1. This error completely attaches to item 3, and so on, right? So that is something that is understood. All these are errors. And then you can constrain two paths also. You can constrain this path op B1 to op B2. These are called as constrained parameters. This is the structural path. These are the loadings of the latent factor onto the observed item. This is the structural error. So in this diagram, if I were to show you, this is an example of structural error. This is measurement error. This is also measurement error. This is also measurement error, and this is also measurement error. This is factor loading. This is also factor loading. All these four are factor loadings. Two of these have been tied to 1. This is called as the structural path. Okay, path, right? And this is covariance, right? This is covariance. So free parameters are parameters that you have to, these are all the parameters that have to be estimated by the software. So the software has actually, by the software, fixed are which you have specified, and they will not be estimated. They will not be estimated by the software. So these are all already tied to 1, so the tool will not do anything about it. These are also tied to 1, so the tool will not do anything about it. The tool will estimate the measurement errors and so on, right?